after the video was done recording, I went to try to find it. It was
Right.
it was in a folder I have on my computer called Eric, and it has all his pictures in there. Like, Michelle, I can't even tell you like how that like that is weird. It's really weird.
It lined up.
It lined up. And I mean, I didn't do it. Like, I didn't do it. Like, I don't direct Zoom videos to save anywhere. They just automatically save on this like Zoom file that my
Yes.
computer has. So like Eric did that.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah,
Yeah.
girl, this was for you. So basically I need to chill the fuck out, which is what the reading was saying.
Right. It's going to get where it needs to go. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I think all of the things are set. Let me double check this and make sure it's playing. Is it updating? Yeah. All right, we're good.
Okay. All right.
Hi.
So last night we talked a little bit just about things in today. And, you know, the one thing that was coming through to me, I had mentioned it a little bit about relationships and like retrogrades specifically. You know, sometimes people can think about it and they're like, dun, 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 right? Retrograde, blah. And there's sometimes things that happen where people pop up and you can go back and look to see, you know, how did I interact with this person before, or how did I interact with myself? Am I going to choose violence today, right? Meaning, am I going to pop off at everything that comes my way or happens? Am I prepared at this point to look inward and figure out, oh, I'm going to call myself on my own stuff, right? So I had said that there was other work that I was doing here or there. Well, today I chose, you're going to get triggered, right?
Okay.
This morning, coming in hot, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm choosing violence right now. Like, I am feeding into it. Dang it. So wait a minute. Let me back up. And that's hard, right? Once you kind of like, you stepped your foot on that, that little triangle deal of saying, okay, I need to pump the brakes, but this is like raw emotion right now. And then to go back and to be like, you didn't deserve all of what you got right now, but this is why I feel the way I feel, right? It's a humbling experience sometimes, but it's also a way for us to decide if a boundary that we have, let's say we put it out there for somebody, is a boundary that we're communicating well. Right? So is it something that we've said, hey, we're putting it out there. This is what happens when X, Y, and Z, and this is why I don't want to engage in that because, or is it something that we just kind of like inadvertently said subconsciously, but then never communicated it? That is what, for me, sometimes retrogrades are about too, right? They're spinning it backwards. They're pulling back to see, okay, what have you been doing that's working good? And what have you not been doing that you think is working well that is not really working well, right?
Right. That's the worst when you like, psh, and then, I mean, it's not the worst. It's where you learn the most, you know, but where you like actually lash out and then kind of dial back and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
The interest of transparency.
Right. And it's important that we're able to talk about it being individuals who read tarot and look at the astrological signs and look at the moon and see what kind of phase we're in and what we're doing our own kind of shadow work and getting into this integral understanding of how we can be more in a good relationship with
Mhm.
ourselves and with the community that we have, the environment that we have around us.
Mhm.
And we're when we're not quite aware of where things lie, or you're like, well, I think it's good. I think it's
Mhm.
okay. This is when that kind of stuff gets tested, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, man, knowing that I'm human, knowing that um the communication aspect on certain sometimes individuals, right?
Mhm.
Um is really like, okay, I need to go back and find where that lives in me. And sometimes that shit's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where does that
Yes.
shit live in me? And why am I not cutting myself a break? Or why am I not feeling like I'm deserving of having that dialogue, right?
Yes.
That's the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of is where we're trying to do something new. We're trying to step into a new leaf. We're trying to uncover things, but we
Mhm.
still, in the back of our heads, we're still doubting things. We're still, double talking to ourselves.
Yep.
We're still really kind of um, in that uncertainty, right?
Yep. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, so I was telling somebody, like, I feel like the new way of gurus and teachers and all of that is going to be more so following example, and so, but it's hard to be vulnerable in this process, because
Wow.
I'm going through a ton of bullshit. We're all going through bullshit. It's like, here's how I'm doing it,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, and just that doubt. Sometimes I'm like, dude, you're on the fucking path. Like, why can't you get this shit? You should have this shit down by now. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm human.
right. Right. But I think the ability to catch ourselves, right?
Yeah.
In it, the ability to be like, man, okay, that that sucked. And I think sometimes um like having not necessarily just kids, but having other people in your community around you
Mhm.
and being able to bounce stuff off of them
Mhm.
really, really, really does help, because you might not necessarily need somebody to fix something for you or advise, but the
Mhm.
vent process allows you to bring it up. Because I think a thing that I struggle with is when I want to bring it up and out, I
Mhm.
bring it up here, right? And I let it
Right.
sit here. And then it
Right.
gets to like run ragged, right? So I'll go outside and sit with the wind and try to really kind of give it off that way. But if you're hot, right? You're
Mhm.
coming in hot, you're really just in it. Sometimes bringing it out this way, it lets you hear it. And
Mhm.
you're like, that sounds really bad. Or no, that I really need to speak more of my truth, right? I really need to. And it doesn't mean that your truth is always right. It
Right.
means fine tuning and finessing the story that you're in. And
Mhm.
if that means that you're in more of a victim story, if you're in a more of a hero story, if you're more of a perpetrator story, that you identify where you need to step off of that
Mhm.
freaking triangle, like really just kind of get off of it. Um, but the other thing, a teacher a long time ago told me that, especially during retrogrades, it's probably
Mhm.
not the best time when you're learning about things to say, you know what, I'm done with you. I can't stand your face. Just get your shit, pack it up,
Right.
and like leave me alone. Go find something else to do. I cannot have
Bye
you
now.
right. Just also on the same page, you don't go and pick up somebody for this like chaos ride, right? If you're
Yeah.
going to get on it. And
Yeah.
I think that's important because when you're slowing things down and you're working through things maybe that you need to work with, or you're using this time for your advantage, and you're really pulling forth more of what you want to expand upon, that is sometimes really detailed you work.
Right.
It's not other people's work. And to put them inside of that bubble with you, it can be quite explosive. It can be very dynamic, but it can also be very short-lived, or where you come back and say, I didn't mean what I said. I might have felt
Exactly.
it right here, but I didn't mean all of it. Like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and the thing with retrogrades is that they're not big, scary things. Like I always kind of joke that retrogrades are something I think that some astrologers or astrology programs hype up just to like sell stuff, you know, and to freak people out because I mean, I bought a car during a Mercury retrograde. I rented a new apartment during a Mercury retrograde. And there are times when it's impacting your chart personally.
Right.
That's when you might be like, you know, I mean, with the contract for the place that I rented, we did go back and be like, oh, well, let's change the date here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we had to move the move-in date. Like, if you go into any retrograde, Mercury is just a really close planet, right? All the outer planets are in retrograde also. But what the most important thing I'm trying to say right now is that retrogrades are time for review, revisiting, reassessment, like reevaluating, stuff, right? So
Some rest.
yeah, rest, exactly, rejuvenation. And this is why exes call. I mean, that is a big thing. That is a Mercury retrograde thing, like an ex will call because you're like reevaluating how you deal with that person. They're reevaluating how they deal with you.
Yeah.
It's just, and who are the people that are going to reflect the things that we need to reevaluate the most than people that we have been intimately with?
Right.
Because that we're mirrors for each other, but
Mhm.
in relationships. So
Yeah.
if you go and so right now, Mercury, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Pluto, well, Neptune, everybody's in retrograde. And Mars is in his retrograde shadow. Mars is going to go into retrograde. I was just looking that up before we started. In November. So end of October. In the end of October, Mars is going to go retrograde. But he's in his shadow. So anything that we are exploring, especially with like our aggression or how we go get things, our warrior, these are the attitudes that we're going to be reevaluating come the mid-October. So any kind of fights that you're having right now, you might be revisiting them coming up between October, November, and January. Mars retrogrades last about 6 months, the whole kit and caboodle of it. So, and he only retrogrades every like 2 years, I think. But interestingly, the only planet that is not having a retrograde, the sun and moon never do, but Venus. So the feminine energy, the womb, being within, being creative, we still want to relate to people. It's just how do we do that, right? But the feminine energy is the only direct energy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is a very internal process. If we're doing that unconsciously, like if we are not processing ourselves whatsoever, the whole fucking world is a mirror right now. The whole world is a mirror anyway, but hopefully we know that, you know what I mean? If we don't
Right.
know that, we're going to be
Yeah.
lashing out at the mirror.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. So lately I've been going outside in the mornings because the mornings have like been really heating up really fast. At least here they have been getting hot fast.
They
So I'll
have
go
been.
outside in the morning because one, it feels different moving from inside a space to outside a space, right?
Mhm.
It kind of really energizes your entire body being out there. But I take my braids out and I sit and meditate, and then I re-braid my hair. But when I sit out and I re-braid my hair, it's like I re-braid it and it's like, all right, let's do some shit. Right. And I'm like, oh no. So I know in dream time there's a lot of things that are coming up. So I'm trying to focus this on different projects. So I think that is probably a good thing for anybody else who's feeling a lot of anxious energy, a lot of sparry kind of energy, right? A lot of fire they have in them. A good thing is going to be for you to kind of get into some kind of a project, like a physical project, right?
Yep.
If you want to do something, fall is coming, birdhouses need to get made. I can do like a fall garden type of thing. You can decide what you're going to do as far as for a different route to walk, run, bike, that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of different sculptures and metalworks and just other type of things that you can get into with your hands. And I say that because you're able to really put that creative energy, if it's more masculine, if it's more fire driven, into creating something. Because you're right, with a Virgo or with a Venus, you want to connect.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the way the connection happens is off of the cusp of something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's kind of where it's important for us to be mindful of that. Sometimes in this, I keep hearing in this energy, there's a lot of get up and do, right? It's harvest. The harvest moon just happened. We like to create, but also in that harvesting, there's a death, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when things die, either the way that we relate to something dies and we have to bring out something new, we have to recreate it. That takes a little bit of time, and letting go of those pieces that are then not going to stick around. It could feel like a little bit of a war to let it go, right? So again, that's where this time, harvest time, comes into play for like my family and for us when we're reassessing each other. What are our strengths and weaknesses? There's 6 of us in the house, not 7 anymore. Nephew went away to college, but there's still 6 very strong personalities. And as we're gearing up, you're hearing a lot more vocal about where they want or what they don't want. And sometimes that is even hard to communicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they want attention. They want to vie for that connection. And yeah, I think if you can get into a bath, if you can get into a shower, if you can play outside in the sprinklers, if you could get water balloons, that might help put the play in that fire, right? It might help calm it a little.
I'm
just saying that because, whoo, yeah.
No, it's a lot. And this full moon was super emotional. Emotions were running high. We also have right now, there's a lot of tension. Mercury is retrograde and Jupiter are retrograde, and they are both opposing one another. Mercury is our mind, our communication, and it's in Libra, which is relating to others, so we want to talk, we want to communicate. And Jupiter is our beliefs over in Aries. So it's like I believe this.
Yes.
So we're trying to find that, you know, whenever planets are in opposition, we're trying to find that balance of like, we might feel really strongly about something, and how are we going to not dampen that fire, but
Mm-hmm.
but still connect with others in a way, you know. And I feel like I don't know, this is random, but I was watching Russell Brand, and he was talking about kind of this controversy now over the Queen of England having died, right? And just that people are so, there's just so much animosity towards one another, you know. And this is like, can two things coexist? I've always had this, it's almost a curse where I just can't stay mad at somebody. I don't know. That's me. It literally does feel like a curse sometimes, because somebody just unbelievable to me, and then I'll sit down and talk to him, and I'll be like, oh, do you, you know, oh, like, I love you. I just love you. I don't care. But no, you know, not everybody's like that. I don't know if that's entirely healthy, but still, like, just this coexisting. And I think it's really interesting that that's highlighted with Jupiter and Mercury in the sky the way they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that like the way that you were saying, belief systems, right?
Mhm.
So I think also like that information that we're receiving or that is coming through clearly, just like you were talking about, Eric, but we're
Mhm.
getting it from other people as well, right? Like we're getting
Mhm.
it from siblings, we're getting it from ancestors, we're getting it from um like generational stuff. And you might be channeling it through and have absolutely no idea why you're really up in arms about something, but it's coming through, right? It's really making its presence known. Um, and your job might not always be to go back and see, to take that, you know, deep dive. If you want to, okay, that's part of the journey that you have, right? But you can see whether or not you want to carry it now. You want to
Mhm.
see what you want to do with it now. Um, but sometimes that duality that you might have in your own relationship with self, of like, wow, this is what I thought, but this is what I'm feeling right now,
Mhm.
are two opposing things.
Right. Even inside, yes.
Yeah.
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 And one might get louder to try to drown out the other. And this is sometimes where I think we get a little shouty, you know?
Hmm.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And
Mm.
that's, yeah. So, like, what is the, so sometimes people in whatever sign they're in or whatever emotion they're in, whatever trauma or shadow work they're in, either need to go inside and retreat a bit more, or need to be like turned up to a 15, right? Like sometimes you're like, I just need a 15, right?
Mhm.
um and 15 to some people is, well, you're trying to destroy or eliminate or take out my energy, because it's a lot, right? um just sometimes where our want or desire to fix something in somebody else is not what that person needs. So we're taking from them their ability to just kind of sit there and understand what it is and bring more clarity to that moment, right? For they themselves. So for people who have to crank it up all the way to 15, or for people who have to go inside and really kind of sit with themselves to figure out how they feel they're going to be able to experience the world, right? Those are very, it comes from the same branch. It's very sensitive, right? It is a very either overworked sensitivity, or it's a very under recognized, right? Like I'm not being heard, I'm not being seen kind of thing. And to be able to marry that in an even place, sometimes it does take the same turn as far as like frequency, right? Like the music that you listen to, the stuff that you listen to on the radio, maybe even the tones that you're hearing, the vibrations that are coming in can either overwork you or pull you down. And I only say that because when we get messages from spirit and there are spirit guides, they're genuinely not trying to mess with us, like screw with us in a negative way. They're trying to get us to pay attention. And if it is an extra sensory or a very sensitive area, that is our opportunity, as much as we want to be in 15, to kind of slow it down. That is our opportunity. And as much as we might want to go inside, is for us to kind of be outside in nature, right? Even if it means it's by yourself. Because if we stay at 15, if we go all the way to 15 and we don't listen to those little messages, then we can stay there and we can get pissed off for a really long time at a lot of different people. But same side, if we stay inside, then we're going to stay there, right? We're not going to want to come out ever. So we're going to think that that is safe. And that's not necessarily the lessons that they're trying to teach us. Yeah, with this full moon being as emotional as it was, I think our ability to reevaluate how we do life, how we walk through life, is constantly having us kind of level up. It's constantly having us reevaluate how we want to show up and be present, which sometimes is difficult, Mama.
It is difficult. Well, so Virgo, which is what we're in right now, is a very planning, detailed kind of sign. And the cool thing about, whenever the sun is spending whatever 30 days through a sign, 28 days, the full moon, the culmination is always in the opposite sign, so it's
Right.
kind of like and so Pisces is very spiritual, flowy, and all of that. So with that full moon, we were sort of releasing things, but it was a reminder to draw that spirit down into your earthy creation, to remember your emotional body and not to get like I'm seeing like a ferret kind of like, or like, but to remember like that, to bring that purpose and that connection to spirit into like our daily work.
Yeah.
And whether,
and I think that you were saying like that the intention gives us the direction that we need to focus in. That builds a lot.
Right. I mean, I always think of when the sun is going through each month, that's why I love the cycles of the zodiac so much, is then we kind of focus on an area of our lives as the sun transits. But and like I'm kind of looking at that and thinking of what you were saying about whether you draw in or whether you're to 15. It's kind of, Virgo, if they're up to 15, they might be like, you need to do this and you didn't, and you spelled that wrong. And or like they might go in and be like, oh, I can't believe they fucking spelled that wrong. So
Yes.
experimenting with a little bit of both, and whatever you are tend to do, teetering a little towards the opposite.
Right. Yes. And I say that my son is a Virgo. So he's very much, when he he feels as though we're not doing what we should be doing, it will be the very like nitpick this, 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 this. And I'm like, oh man.
Oh, yeah.
But you get him in his kind of his element, right? And he is just, I mean, he is on it. It is amazing. Just the lengths of which he goes to kind of blossom and bloom, right?
Mhm.
Get him into certain music, he's great. Get him into a situation where he feels less compelled to nitpick, and he will absolutely shut down.
Mhm.
So it is finding that safe space, because Virgos are like worry warriors.
Mhm.
But we really got to take care of them. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
it's quite important for us to take care of them because they
Well,
do some of that important work that
we're like, well, Virgos are, they call it like a physician sort of energy where they're caretakers. They take care of the little details. They're by the bedside, you know, doing like the nurturing things. And that's funny too, because I'm always learning. And 3 Virgos came to mind when you said that he enjoys music. And all 3 of them are very into music. And I'm like, wow, so sorry, my mind is spinning out on that. I'm like,
yes.
see how that would be helpful to that, like to give a little background to that tendency to like get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, all in all, I think that more of the things that have been coming through are not the intensity, but it is the build,
Mhm.
right? It is the build of said emotions, or the build of said energies. When I'm talking about like the 15 or the going inside,
Mhm.
like for him, it's a build to that, right?
Right,
And it's a
right,
bit to kind of go inward. And
right.
I think that if we're going through the next couple of months here, right? So we're going to go through October, November, December, January. For some reason, I think all of those months, I think that there's like an underlying tone as to why maybe we're working on, because we had the eclipses, we worked on motions, we worked on intuition, we were working on relationships. And I think that those revisits, as we do that through the zodiac,
Mhm.
we're able to see them in a different way based upon how we've done what work we're needing to do.
Mhm.
We're meeting them on a different level if we're continuing to do that work. But it seems like we put something else in our tool belt, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or we open our eyes a little bit wider, or we're like, okay, I'm going to let that one go, right? I'm really going to let that story die. I'm not going to carry that one around in my lens or my filter anymore. So much more than, whereas before is we numbed out, we tuned out, we zoned out. I'm not seeing a lot of that anymore. I'm seeing that we're meeting those different options, and then, or those different lessons that we're learning, and then we're making a decision of how we want to continue. And other people are asking, well, this doesn't make sense, right?
Mhm.
I want to learn more about tarot. I want to learn more about spirituality. I want to learn a bunch of different facets. I want to see what other things I can do to help uncover why I'm maybe feeling the way that I'm feeling. Continually, this story is being,
Mhm.
brought up. And I think that goes to say that those people who have been asking those questions and allowing things to open up inside of them, they're now, like when the file went to Eric, it's
Mhm.
now going to people who are saying, oh yeah, okay, what do you want to look at? Or how do you want to do this? Or yeah, we deal with that and we talk about that. And this is the community that we kind of are growing into. And this is a safer space for you to bounce those ideas off of, to have those tough questions. I think there's an even more budding array of people who are
Yeah.
willing to do that,
Yes.
who are willing to be there and to support and hold space. Even though there are others who might be set and nope and that still shut off. There, there
That's
are,
okay too.
right? Yeah, um, there's still those who kind of bring in
Mhm.
that space. So yeah, I was just thinking about something else, but yeah, I think bringing in that space
Yeah. Uh-oh.
is my kiddo. Sorry.
Oh, I was like, I can't hear you. That's okay. So we have, I'm catching comments. Jared Callister, who's a friend of mine, says, hello from Melbourne, Australia. This is very interesting. I understand you both. Thanks. It's morning time here. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Guten Tag. And then Jake, what's up, Jake? Says, hi, ladies. It's always look inward. Yes.
Mhm.
Jake, and then completely agree. Many of us are searching deeper, even those that wouldn't usually do those things. No, totally agree. Totally agree. No, and the cool thing about like following the sun through the zodiac signs is that we all have every sign in us because we are all one, right? And even if you don't have planets or anything like that, like as the sun is going through that sign, then you can, like I try to have those, those qualities, the higher aspects of that quality.
Mhm.
Because that's what makes a well-rounded individual. Notice it says well-rounded, like a birth chart. I just put that together. Anyway. But yeah, I've had a lot of people who've been like, I'm interested in tarot, or I had a dream. What do you think it means? A lot of people are having dreams.
Yeah, that's the Pisces. So for me,
Yep.
that's coming off of that aspect or that sign. Pisces usually brings a lot of dreams, right? A lot of colorful, a lot of vivid, a lot of messages in the dreams. So if you're holding on to them, write them down, decode them. You can look through various different things to kind of figure out what means, but the big point or the big thing that we look at, or I look at when I'm talking about a dream or I'm remembering a dream, is if I recognize anyone, if I can remember any smells, tastes, colors, buildings, languages, music, right? Because it's going to give us an indication of those frequencies that we need to kind of key in on. Even though it's color, it's going to have a frequency. In music, language, that has a frequency. Smells, because it's going to trigger something for our remembrance to kind of have us settle into that space where we're dreaming about. And those dreams could continue to come, right? If you're able to write them down. Right now, when we're looking at a dream, we might be thinking, okay, I want to know what that dream means in the next 2 days. It might not mean that it's going to make sense in the next month. It might mean that it's adding and gaining at pieces by pieces by pieces what you need to see over a greater field, right? Like a
Yeah.
bigger picture kind of thing. Because if we got all of our messages instantaneously, boom, we wouldn't be doing a lot of inner work, right? We would just
Right.
asking for that, that toll road, that highway, hey, direct connect, this is what I want, answer it for me. But it asks us to be present for us, right? To be in our daily, and then to kind of decode that. So I don't want to give anybody like pressure when they're getting those dreams. Like, yeah, I'm getting high vivid dreams. This is amazing. What does it mean?
Right.
Don't know. Right?
Like that meme, you know, there's like a cat like holding a sword, riding a fish.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, well, so something too, is at least to know is I always figure I don't, okay, how do I want to put this? I think therapy is really cool, but I also feel like I went to therapy for a long time, and sometimes it gets to the point where I'm just repeating my story, right? And I'm not making, I'm not
Right.
moving forward. So sometimes with dreams, I just chalk it up to my subconscious is figuring shit out, and I don't have to understand everyone, because sometimes we can get caught up in like, oh, what does it mean when there's a broom in your dream? Or, you know, and things are symbolic and mean something, but we can get lost in the details and just know that like we're working on things. You know, and dreams are something that I've been working hard, not too hard, because that's the opposite of what I was just saying, but making a point to lay in bed in the morning before like jumping out and starting to do things. It's taken a couple months and I'm really starting to remember more. And once you make a point to lay in bed and be like, okay, wait, let it come back to me. What was that dream about? Then your dreams are like, oh shit, she's paying attention. So it'll stand out to you even more. Or I don't know if it's your subconscious being like, oh wait, she wants to know about this now. So we're gonna pay attention to it. Oh wait, can't hear you.
It's okay. So there are other things too, if it pops up during your day,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
It'll be like, oh, okay, maybe this is a here and now way for us to interact. Um, I always find that it's interesting if we don't allow ourselves to open up, right? And we're very shelled in. Maybe we don't breathe a couple times and, let ourselves expand as we're waking up for the day. We put our feet on the floor and, we're boom, right? We're doing something, we're onto it. Then our ability to connect or catch those synchronicities are like diminished, right?
mm-hmm,
It's almost like we put our own little blinders on for the day, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, and it might seem like they're cool kid shades, right? Because we're doing our thing, we got our shit together, we're fucking, I've got all this, blah, 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 blah. But that's sometimes a big distraction, right? It can really put us off road of what it is that we maybe need to be present for. I'm not saying like don't do the dishes, and I'm not saying wait until 2 weeks to do your laundry or anything like that, but I'm saying if we think that if we don't get those things accomplished, or that is our only goal for the day, and that comes from not listening to your intuition, that comes from trying to run this race and get it done as fast as we possibly can. Having kids, it's always going to be right, something's somewhere, right? It's going to happen. Oh, but the more that we put ourselves on the back burner when it comes to listening, the more we'll find that other people put us on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's like a really shitty place to be. It's a really kind of crappy place for us to feel that we're not walking into and meeting the universe where it needs us to be.
Right.
And I say that because for a long time, when I was a bit younger, the ability to walk with a very air, like a confidence, right? I'm very confident, but it didn't go as far as I thought it would. And that was just because there's a pretending in that aspect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where people talk a lot about imposter syndrome. I think sometimes when you're younger, you're very confident, but you're like, it's a pretend confidence sometimes,
Right.
because you're like, well, shit, I hope they just don't find out. And that's different from imposters, because it's like, I'm really like excited, but until you give me dates and you throw out a bunch of shit and I know that you know what you're talking about, well, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
It's messy when you're younger. When you get a little bit older, you start catching yourself on those things that maybe you need to work on, or that you need to listen to.
Mhm.
And you come to a point where you tune out all those other voices, all those other stories of you, all those interpretations of what value um, you think you bring to them, and
Mhm.
you start understanding what value you want to maintain within yourself. And that's, I think, a big part of where integrity comes in. And integrity is a huge part of spiritual work, of inner work, of drive, of commitment, of dedication, because the integrity that you have to maintain a healthy and wholesome relationship with yourself, with the universe, with the land that you're on, you'll see that reciprocity come with how you're able to engage then with other beings. Because, like you were saying, it's a reflection, right?
Mhm.
And those reflections really rely on your willingness to engage in
Yes.
being the healthiest at that time, right? The healthiest kind of well worked, um, kind of just pot or plant, right? That
Mhm.
is able to blossom, that is able to do that work, that is able to grow. Um, yeah, yeah, which it kind of brought me back when you were talking about like a younger kid, like a just a different time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It when you were talking, okay, so our connection to spirit and all of that, and that a lot of people are starting to kind of wake up and realize that there's more. And so one of the things that was jumping out at me is I would even like I'll get distracted sometimes and be like, I don't have time for this or I don't have time for that. But that's how ego works, right? Because ego doesn't want us to figure shit out. And I don't vilify the ego. Um, but ego wants to prevent us from doing this work because it kind of makes the ego a little less, well, unimportant. It becomes unimportant. But you like if you're a parent or if you have young kids, like when I'm driving, I will put I literally clear off the seat next to me and I talk to my spirit guides. And even if like, somebody hasn't practiced in this, but once you start showing the universe like they're your significant other and appreciating it and giving it space, things will start to pop up, right? Or do 3 minutes before you head out the door, sit on the couch
Mhm.
and just sit there. And 3 minutes is a really long time to just sit and be quiet, And I say
Right.
that like, if you have time for more than 3 minutes, that's good. But it's enough, like, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to kind of patently write off doing anything as I don't have enough time instead of being creative. And what ego wants us to do is to not really explore in here because sometimes too it's uncomfortable,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Um, and then the uncomfortability, if um if it's one where you're like, I'm just spinning in this story, right?
Mhm.
I don't feel good. This is what I want to change, but I don't necessarily know exactly how I'm gonna change it to move it. Um, that's where that like art, I don't know if anybody still does it as far as like a session thing around here, but like that art therapy where you use
Mhm.
more colors, you kind of get into it, like the finger paints or the actual painting or doing the blocking. Um, just a bunch of different tools that we have at our disposal to move it, because I think a part of that going inward and rewriting that is about making a creative change to do that. If as detailed or vision based that we are, right? We've got our phones, we've got our tablets, we got our whatever, we got our televisions, all that. We're very visual. So if we can visually see that change, if we can visually see what it is that we're moving or how it's making us feel, and it doesn't matter if we keep it, we can go and we can burn it, but we've made a significant change. We've made an actual difference. We've made a mark, recouping our energy and what it is that we want to do with that energy. Again, you know, splotches or whatever might not make entirely all much sense to us in the moment when we're doing it. But being creative, even that just means just moving, right? Like dancing or anything, sitting with your cat, right? Or your dog, doing something to kind of get it out. Because still saying, I'm not in the story, this is not a good place, I want to be different, I want to change it different. Let me go ahead and meditate on it, and I'm going to sit and give myself space. Well, what do I do now? How do I move it now, or how do I put it into practice? And giving ourselves that grace, right? When we see it, saying, oh, okay, I wanted to move it, and this is how I wanted to kind of try to move it. So that way we can continue to practice on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a silly idea come too. Like when we're trying to change, one of the things that I did right when I got out of rehab, and I lived in a new place or whatever, but whenever I would get into a routine of driving a certain way to work or whatever, I would be like, oh, I'm going to take a different way. You know, but changing anything, just kind of making sure, because otherwise so much of our lives becomes automatic and automated that we're not present with it. You know, so as many little changes to our routine that we can make kind of inspires that on the outside and with it.
I love talking with you, Mike, by the way.
Same. I mean, I love talking to me, but I love talking to you too.
It helps us, you know, put into practice too how we interact, right? And how we kind of talk to ourselves, because I think we'll talk really, really shitty to ourselves, and then we'll talk to somebody else and we're like, oh, I really don't think that I'm that bad, right? But
well, and
you give a lot of good insight.
No, so do you. And I am not artsy crafty. So my creative flow is my journal, but I realize a lot of people don't like to journal, you know?
Yeah. I love that for you, because I am shit at journaling.
Really?
You try to get me to sit down for 10 minutes and I'm going to be like, what? This is sweat. I can't. Like, how many words? Like, what? So many things.
That's so funny. Well, and you can draw pictures, but you give me other ideas because I get stuck on the journaling thing. I just you know, writing anything or doodling. It's a journal that I told Zeke never to read and to throw away if I die, because I will posthumously kick his ass if any of that ever ends up in an autobiography or something, because it's really dumb shit, but it's I am a priestess. You know,
right, babe.
myself up.
That's great. I love that.
I have written that.
I would be like, I have to put stickers on it because my ADHD brain is like, the paper doesn't feel good. It doesn't smell right. I need a new pen. That doesn't roll the right way. And that color is kind of okay, but I'm really not digging it right now. So
oh my gosh. I a sticker book even. If somebody doesn't feel super artistic, a sticker book. Hey, Betsy. I love those. Betsy said hi. I don't think I missed anything else. No. Okay. Yeah, no, I love this, but we're going to do it once a week.
Yeah. We're just going to sit down and have a chat. And if anybody has any questions or something else has been popping up and just want to talk about it, this is kind of that space for you to kind of bring things that maybe their spirit has been bringing to you, or that have been popping up in your dreams, or whatever. This is just a space, right? Because
Yeah.
all we're doing was we're chatting, but we understand and recognize that in doing it between us, that it allows a bigger space to be held for people who maybe have, or the desire to have
Yeah.
those chats too. It gives just, just a little bit of space to meet. So
Mhm. Well, yes. And I like my inspiration for loving stuff like this, like just people talking, is because when I got out of rehab, I swear I have more life experience than that. But when I got out of rehab, I wanted to get into spirituality. But prior to, I had always been told by other people what to do. So when I went on my spiritual exploration, it was a solo journey. And I didn't want a guru. I didn't want a leader. I didn't want any of that. I watched a lot of people communicating and talking about their own spiritual experiences. And that's how
mm,
I learned the most,
yeah.
So with Michelle and I just being transparent, like there's no we know more shit about shit, but like that's it. Like, and maybe not even, but sometimes too, even the practice of applying it to our own lives, we talk to each other to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's not like sitting piously on a mountaintop. It's like we're over here like a bull in the china shop of life also.
Doing life. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that's what I don't know. I just think that it's awesome. And I love Michelle.
Yeah, I love you too. So thank you everybody
Yeah,
for
thank
jumping
you.
on and putting those comments in. If you have any questions that you want to like put in that we can like talk about next week,
Next time.
please definitely go ahead and do that. And thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Yes. Awesome. And yeah, or a private message, one of us or whatever. And I will stop the